Welcome back to the Shizzo Network podcast live. Today's topic, DC Comics, with your host, Larry from the Shizzo Network. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. That was a bit awkward, but again, very done well. Need I say more? Now, I've actually been meaning to do this live stream for such a long time, especially since me being both a Marvel and DC fan, since I've already done a podcast with Marvel, which I might actually do a part 2 on a little later down the line, I figured why not show some attention to DC, which we can basically consider the black sheep of the comic industry. Well, maybe not necessarily the black sheep of the comic industry, at least in terms of the movie industry, in terms of comic book movies. Comic book wise, DC is being very successful with its DC Rebirth story arc, but Marvel, on the other hand, necessarily hasn't been doing so great with its comics for some reason. I don't know why, but it just isn't. Let's hope that its new comic series, X-Men Resurrection, will shake things up. Anyways, back to DC. DC is, let's just say, DC is one of, if not probably the most famous comic book industry in the world. Possibly even more famous than Marvel. Well, if you're talking about comic book wise, but if you're talking about comic book movies, that would be in the case of Marvel. Now, having said that, let's jump right into the topic of DC. There's quite a lot to talk about. So, just keep in mind that as I go through this, I may actually botch up here and there. Trying to be accurate as possible with trying to give you guys as much information about DC as possible. So, for some of you out there who probably don't even know, Warner Brothers owns the rights to not only the DCU, but DC Comics as a whole. Some people probably aren't even aware of this, but yeah, it's true. DC is owned by Warner Brothers. It's its parent company. It's been like that ever since Warner Brothers bought DC, which was like in I can't remember what year it was. I believe it was like around the 1980s or the 70s when Warner Brothers bought DC. I'm not 100% sure, so yeah, can you correct me in the comments if I'm wrong? Basically, DC was founded in 1934, which was 83 years ago. But it wasn't called DC at the time. It was called National Allied Publications. And its founder was Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? So basically, yeah, he's the founder of DC. He was born in 1890, and he died at the age of 74 or 75. Sources actually differ, in 1965. So yes, God bless his soul. I thank you for finding DC. Having said that, let's just get on straight to it. So you guys probably already know DC for being known for its characters such as Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, The Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, Shazam, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, and Green Arrow. But you also have some of its teams such as the Justice League, the Justice Society of America, the Suicide Squad, and the Teen Titans as well, and many of its well-known villains such as the Joker, Lex Luthor, Darkseid, Catwoman, Ra's al Ghul, Destro, Professor Zoom, Sinestro, Black Adam, and Brainiac. Yeah, there's plenty of characters in the DC universe to name, and it's hard to actually pick a favorite, to be honest. So yeah, there's quite a bit to talk about here. So, just as a piece of trivia too, DC Comics is not only it's not only the largest. Wait a minute, is it really? I think it is. Yeah, it's one of the largest and oldest American comic book companies as well. I don't think it's the oldest. I actually don't know what is. I think wait a minute. I'm so sorry. It's just, I'm trying to figure this stuff out. I believe, no, Dark Horse Comics was founded in the 80s, so that's an easy scratch out. But who cares? We're not talking about stats. We're talking about DC. So there was actually this fact that I recently researched recently. So some of you probably already know that Batman during his golden years, or in this case, during the golden age of comics, Batman actually used to kill people. Yeah, I know. It's hard to imagine that, right? It's really, really tough to imagine Batman, murdering anybody because he's a superhero. But believe it or not, there was a time where he actually did do that. How? Basically, he possessed a gun. He always held a gun, and he was not afraid of using it to kill his enemies. Worst of all, Batman didn't feel guilty about it at all. It wasn't until the 33rd issue of the Detective Comics, which again was in the late 30s, when Batman started to behave more of like a superhero instead of an anti-hero, therefore developing a moral code in the process. The reason why he did this was because he didn't want to sink to the level of the man who murdered his parents. Because when you think about it, it makes sense. Because after all, the guy who did murder Bruce's parents used a gun himself. Makes sense, right? So that's why I actually think it makes perfect sense for Bruce to actually change his ways like this, because it just makes sense. Point blank period. Anyways, but Batman apparently is not the only one who Batman is not the only one who actually used to kill people during the golden age in the DC comics. Believe it or not, Superman himself actually used to kill people. Yes. Everyone's favorite superhero, Superman, actually used to kill people. It's really, really hard to imagine that, but much like Batman, he didn't give a crap what he did. He just did it just to do it, Yeah. So not only did Batman used to kill people during the golden age of comics, but so did Superman. It's really hard to imagine that two of the most well-known heroes in DC used to kill people. Thankfully, that's not the case now. And usually when they do kill people nowadays, it's mostly, by accident or whatever, stuff like that. So having said that, let's keep moving on, shall we? More on the DC comics. I think I actually previously mentioned this in my Marvel podcast. It's about this whole stigma about Man-Thing and Swamp Thing being copycats of each other. A lot of people believe that DC stole the character from Marvel, which could very well be true. But the thing is, DC's Swamp Thing is actually more popular. You see, the biggest difference, they both have similar origin stories, actually, believe it or not, because they are both humanoid and plant elemental creatures, right? They're both like, swamp monsters who are basically heroes. Yeah, Swamp Thing is a hero. I honestly thought he was either an anti-hero or a villain or whatever. No, he's a hero. Man-Thing, on the other hand, has empathy, a lot of empathy. He's an empathetic swamp monster. And I do believe that Man-Thing behaves more of like an anti-hero rather than, a hero like Man-Thing. Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, speaking of him, actually appeared in 2 theatrical films, a live-action television series, and a 5-part animated series as well. And he even ranked on the top 28th, and he was ranked as 28th in the top 100 comic book heroes. So yeah, Swamp Thing evidently is very popular. His real name is Dr. Alec Holland. And his abilities are superhuman strength and durability, telepathic dominant over plant life, psychology, if that's how you pronounce it, granting, he's able to shapeshift, and he's able to create new bodies out of plants. So yeah, he's pretty cool, to say the least. But yeah, like I said, these two have very, very similar origin stories. Okay. Allow me to explain it. Hang on one second. I gotta get Man-Thing sources. I'm sorry. Yeah. So Man-Thing, on the other hand, like I said, is more of like an anti-hero, and even though he does have empathy, he kind of behaves more of like an anti-hero. And yeah, much like Swamp Thing, he also appeared. Man-Thing also appeared in a live-action movie, but unfortunately, it failed. Like literally failed. It's probably the biggest movie failure in comic book history. But I know this isn't about Marvel. We're talking about DC here. But the reason why I'm talking about Man-Thing is because of the comparison. Basically, I'm trying to tell you guys, about each character. So basically, let's go through it, shall we? Let's talk about it, shall we? So, Swamp Thing's origin story, like I said, his real name is... Well, actually, when the character first appeared, his name was actually Alex Olsen, and he appeared in June to July of 1971, while Man-Thing debuted in May of 1971. Again, this is one of the main reasons why people believe DC stole the character, which I don't think is true. I mean, I think they probably made their version of Man-Thing, yes, but even though they have similar origin stories, but some slight differences. Let's just go through it. So basically, in the first issue that Swamp Thing ever appeared in, which was House of Secrets, issue number 92, I'm sorry. Basically, it takes place in the early 20th century with Dr. Olsen, who, again, he's actually a scientist, much like Dr. Theodore from Marvel, Man-Thing. Yes, because Man-Thing's real name is Theodore Sadius, I believe. But anyways, back to DC. So basically, Olsen gets caught in a lab explosion that was caused by his co-worker by the name of Damian Ridge, and he basically intended to kill him. Actually, yeah, Damian actually wanted to kill Olsen personally, like on purpose, for the sole purpose of gaining Olsen's wife, Linda. Afterwards, Olsen gets physically altered by chemicals and the forces within the swamp as well. So basically, he then transforms into a monstrous creature who then kills Damian Ridge before he will also eventually go on to before the latter actually could murder Linda. Actually, yeah, Ridge tried to murder Olsen's wife, who then has started to also suspect that Ridge of murdering Alex as well. And so basically, and because Alex couldn't reveal his true identity to his wife Linda, he returns to the swamp. So that's basically it, Basically, I don't really need to say it. And then there was also another version of the character who is actually the current one. It's called Alec Holland, who is a scientist who works in the it's basically a new version of the character. It's basically the same thing, but it's depicting a more heroic and a more contemporary version of Swamp Thing. And basically, yeah, his name is Alec Holland, and he is a scientist who works in the Louisiana swamps on a secret biorestorative formula that can quote unquote make forests out of deserts. Not kidding. However, unfortunately for Holland, he gets killed by a bomb that was planted by agents of the mysterious Mr. E, aka Nathan Ellery, who basically wanted the biorestorative formula. Kind of sounds like Plaintiff for SpongeBob. Anyways, so after he gets splashed by the burning chemicals in a massive fire, Holland then runs from the lab and falls into the muck-filled swamp, after which a creature resembling a humanoid plant appears. Now, here's the crazy part. So Roy Thomas and Gary Conway, who created Man-Thing for Marvel Comics a year and a half earlier, thought that this origin story was way too similar to the character Swamp Man-Thing, which leads me to the next one, Man-Thing from Marvel Comics. So allow me to explain. So like I said, Man-Thing's real name, who is a human by the name of who is a young biochemist named Dr. Theodore or Ted Salas, who is a native from Nebraska, and he works in the Everglades as part of Dr. Wilma Calvin's project, the Gladiator team, which includes Dr. Barbara Morris and her fiance Dr. Paul Allen. So, Dr. L. It also a Dr. L. Wendell. I'm sorry. Is later cited as being the staff after Dr. Calvin gets shot. And so the group is attempting to basically recreate the super soldier serum that was used to create Captain America, which, just for the record, happened in Web of Spider-Man Volume 2, Issue number 6, which basically revealed that Ted, at one point, treated and worked alongside Dr. Kirk Connors, a.k.a. the Lizard, shortly after Connors' arm was amputated, and driving the research that it would eventually transform Connors into the aforementioned Lizard. If this does not sound any similar... Oh, no, wait, hold on. It only gets more similar from here on out. So, there's also a technological terrorist group by the name of Advanced Idea Mechanics, aka AIM, which basically has been operating in the area, the same area, where Ted is, where they're trying to rebuild the super soldier serum. And Ted basically breaches security by bringing with him his lover, Ellen Brandon, who is actually referred to as Miss Brandon, but, later... Yeah, who was actually referred to as Miss Brandon, actually, in this issue, apparently. So then he later destroys his notes to his formula, which lucky for him, he actually memorized before he destroyed it. So then he gets ambushed, and he learns that Brandon has betrayed him. Yep, his own lover betrayed him. And fleeing with the only sample of his serum, he injects himself with it in hopes of saving himself. However, unfortunately for him, he crashes his car into the swamp where Chemical, and as in the very first issue of Man-Thing, issue number 1, later explained, which was, by the way, Man-Thing's first comic book issue, magical forces instantly transformed him into a slow-moving plant matter creature with large, solid red eyes. He's unable to speak, and he has dim memories, and he attacks the ambushers and Brandon, burning and scarring part of her face as well, with an acid that he now secretes in the presence of violent emotions. It brings me back to the fact that Man-Thing is very empathetic. He has a lot of emotions. Then Man-Thing just wanders away into the swamp. Doesn't this sound very similar to the origin story of Swamp Thing? So it's kind of crazy how Swamp Thing is more popular. But that was one topic I really wanted to get on, because I think it's completely shocking how these two share very similar origin stories. Alright, I already explained Swamp Thing's abilities, but on Man-Thing's side, he does have this. Yeah, he does have some same stuff, but it's not all the same. He does have superhuman strength and durability, which is what you should expect from a big creature like him. He has empathetic senses, and he has the ability to secrete a powerful corrosive chemical agent and a counter agent, as well as teleport himself and others through quote-unquote the nexus of all realities, and speak the universal language. By the way, he also partnered with Howard the Duck, just gonna throw that out in case anyone cares. DC, on the other hand, we already got past the superhuman strength there, so he has telepathy dominant over plant life. So basically, and also another thing that he can do is shapeshift. Swamp Thing has the ability to shapeshift, and also he has the ability to control plant life, and also create new bodies out of plants too. So Swamp Thing is actually pretty cool, but it's still very crazy how DC actually really made this character sound very similar to Man-Thing. Really crazy. Now on to our next topic about DC. So, you guys are probably well aware of some of the famous deaths that happened in the DC universe. Okay, so deaths in the DC universe are actually quite shocking. So hang on, I'm sorry. Anyways, we had the death of Superman, the death of Jason Todd, the death of Blue Beetle. You know, those kind of stuff. That kind of stuff. So, speaking of that, that's a. Should I also tell you guys that there actually is a character named Death in DC? And here's the thing, she's female. Yep, not kidding. Anyways, back to the point at hand. There are so much superhero deaths, but it seems like DC really had it right when it came to comic book deaths. I mean, don't get me wrong, Marvel also gets great at it, but DC's no-brainer when it comes to comic book deaths. Okay? Believe it or not, in 1995, in issue number 101 of Green Arrow died. Of course, since he's a very, very popular character in the DC universe, DC didn't let him stay dead forever. So basically, okay, so I'm going to explain to you exactly how it went down, okay? So basically, Oliver Queen, who again, for those who don't know, is Green Arrow's real name, he basically, oh crap, what the hell is this? I'm so sorry. Some ads are probably up on my phone, I'm sorry. Anyways, basically, back to what I was saying, Oliver Queen basically embarks on a mission to bring down an eco-terrorist group by the name of Eden Corps. And so he penetrated the organization by the way of the sultry Hyrax, the CEO of the villainous gang, by the way. So after the fling goes sideways, the pair actually fight at 30,000 feet aboard a cargo plane where Hyrax intends to ignite a mega bomb built to level Metropolis. So she clearly explains to the Queen that the detonator is a quote-unquote double dead man switch, which means two individuals insert their hands, pull, and release their respective triggers that get atomized instantly. For reasons unknown, Oliver then jams his arm into the double dead man switch, which enables the bomb to blow all by himself. So, yeah, and here's more. There's Superman, who then proceeds to list countless ways on how he could save Queen. The Emerald Archer wouldn't budge, and though he's torn between going down with the ship and getting his arm amputated, he elects to go nuclear, and in the blaze of glory, Oliver Queen ignites the bomb, and he dies in the explosion. So, allow me to summarize. Oliver Queen jammed his hand into a bomb detonator, and he effectively ended his life on his own terms. It's safe to say that he did die as a hero, so I'll give it that, Anyways, speaking of DC, we also have Supergirl's death. Yeah, Supergirl's death was definitely very sad. It was very, very sad. Like, holy shit. It was very, very sad. Like, it's literally impossible to read Crisis on Infinite Earths, which came out in 1985, just FYI, without shedding at least one tear to this. That's how sad it is. Let me explain. So, you have Cara Delevingne, who we already know as Supergirl. So, she's related to Superman as they're both cousins. So, she has the same flesh and blood as Superman. And her death was a serious blow to Superman's life. So basically, the Superman was fighting a villain, a very powerful villain by the name of the Anti-Monitor, as Supergirl threw herself into the battle in an attempt to help save her cousin. And though she was very, very strong, she was not strong enough to defeat the villain, and so the villain then sent a radioactive energy blast, which goes straight through her body, which ultimately kills her. Probably the worst part about seeing all this was Superman's reaction. Seeing Superman's reaction after she died was probably what made it sad even more, because keeping her safe was all Superman ever wanted to do. This is widely regarded as one of the most significant and somber deaths in comics history. Just that's how sad it is. Like, it could easily be in the top 5 if you really wanted to be there. It's literally one of the most significant deaths in comic history. So yeah, if you haven't read Crisis on Infinite Earths, consider it. I'm just saying. Believe it or not, Hal Jordan, aka the Green Lantern, also had a heroic death. This happened in the comic book known as Final Night issue number 4 in 1996. Yep, that was 21 years ago. So, allow me to explain. So basically what happens in this comic, Jordan atones for his earlier sins by paying the ultimate sacrifice. So I guess you could say the way he died in this issue is kind of similar to how Jesus died and how, he died for all of our sins so we could be forgiven. So it's kind of similar, So yeah, he atones for his earlier sins by sacrificing himself. And as an addition, this is also a crossover series, so I'm just going to throw it out in case anyone cares. But that's not the point. So you could basically say, okay, allow me to keep going. I'm just going to keep going anyways. So enter Hal Jordan, who again is the Green Lantern. So he is in the megalomaniac. I'm so sorry. I'm having a hard time actually pronouncing this word. I believe it's megalomaniac, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. State of parallax. So again, correct me if I'm wrong on that word. I don't have the best vocabulary in the world, so don't hate me. Yeah, just fuck it. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Hal Jordan sacrificed himself. And how this all happened? The Sun Eater declared an impending threat to Earth by the foreboding alien named Dusk. And when her warning comes true and the Earth's sun is stripped of its power, the world begins to crumble. Yeah. Sucks, doesn't it? I know. Anyways, let's just keep moving on. There's many more deaths. In other words, I mean, I do feel sorry that Hal Jordan kind of died, but his death is not one of the saddest. I really can't say much, honestly. Another famous death that happened in the DC universe. Oh, wait a minute. I'm so sorry. Yeah, another famous death that happened in the DC universe, and this is actually one of the most well-known deaths in the history of comics. It's also regarded as one of the most evil and dastardly things the Joker has ever done. And that was when he murdered Jason Todd along with his goddamn mother. Yeah, this is terrible. So, allow me to explain what happened. So, at the time when Jason Todd took the mantle of Robin after Dick Grayson became Nightwing, a lot of people really weren't fans of Jason Todd for some reason because they thought that he was just an arrogant kid who didn't deserve a lot, which actually isn't true, believe it or not. And so, DC actually allowed the people to vote on whether if Jason Todd should live or die. Most people decided to have him be dead, and so that's exactly what DC did. This happened in the comic called Robin Batman issue number 428 in 1988. What happened is that Jason Todd basically what happened is that Jason Todd literally gets brutally beaten by the Joker with a crowbar. And that's not what killed him, though. That's not what killed him. Don't get me wrong. That crowbar fucked him up pretty good, but that's not what killed him. Along with Jason Todd's mother, Joker set off a bomb in the warehouse where they was at, which he then escaped from, which exploded, which killed not only Jason Todd's mother, but including Jason himself. Batman tried to make it there in time to save Todd, but unfortunately for him, it was way too late, and Jason had died. Batman considers this one of his biggest failures ever, because he's always considered Jason to be his son. So obviously, you know, and not only that, but Batman also pays homage to Jason again, he pays homage to him and wish that he could have protected him, and that he will never be forgotten. It's kind of similar to how Superman basically, was really upset over the death of his cousin Supergirl, and said that he will never forget, and not only that, but he was gonna miss her as well. Back to, also, yes, Batman has died in the comic. This happened in Final Crisis, but of course, since Batman, yeah, wait a minute, there was something I was gonna say about Batman, but I can't remember what it was though. Batman dying in the comics and never coming back is extremely low, because he is a fan favorite character. He is regarded right up there with Superman as DC's greatest creation. So when he first made his debut in 1939, it was impossible to even think about Batman dying. But in Final Crisis issue number 6, that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, that's exactly what happened. So, loading a gun with the very bullet that killed Orion, the Dark Knight himself rationalizes this impending murder and takes the shot at Darkseid. And just as the bullet clips his shoulder, the Lord of Apocalypse, who, like I said, is Darkseid, unleashes his radioactive Omega beams and effectively incinerates his opponent. And although the apparent death of Batman lingers for a fleeting moment, the images of his chair course will last for a lifetime, because it was very shocking, because no one would have expected that DC would actually kill Batman momentarily. So it's crazy that they would actually do that. Anyways, another issue in Crisis on Infinite Earths was the Flash, who died in the 8th issue of Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985. If memory serves me correctly, I do believe that the Flash who supposedly died in this was none other than the most popular Flash in the DC universe, Barry Allen. Now, you might be asking me, how did this happen? I'm going to explain. So, the Flash goes through great lengths to defeat the Anti-Monitor, who, like I said, was the killer of Supergirl, in the antimatter planet called Ward. And so while the Anti-Monitor prepares his cannon to subdue the still surviving Earth, the Flash then recruits the villain's Thunderer slaves to rebel against their evil master. And although there was merely a ploy and the Anti-Monitor quickly subdues the insurrection, the Flash then uses this distraction to locate the cannon's antimatter energy core. And knowing what must be done, he runs faster than ever before. While he successfully causes the cannon to self-destruct, the Flash's speed is so immense that he steadily loses the unity of his sentient body, and it disintegrates into nothingness. However, thankless his sacrifice may have been, the Flash saved lives of countless billions on the truly infinitive Earths. And later on, it then later revealed that Barry actually never died. He only merged with the Speed Force. So, yeah. He's another popular character, to say the least. And finally, the most famous death in the history of DC, in the DC universe, and arguably regarded as the most important event in the DC universe, is the death of Superman. This took place in Superman issue number 75 of 1992. So, Superman battled Doomsday. Doomsday is regarded as one of the most powerful and most well-recognized DC villains of all time. And he is also the first villain in the history of DC to actually kill the Man of Steel, making him worthy enough to actually battle Superman. So what happened was that they fought for what was like basically an eternity. And after a very, very long battle, they could not take it anymore. And so Superman did manage to defeat Doomsday, but unfortunately, Doomsday fucked him up really good. And unfortunately, Superman died from his wounds. And worst of all, he died in the arms of the woman he loves, Lois Lane. Yep. He died quietly in the arms of Lois Lane. And then later on, no. Actually, the reason why this is such an important moment in not only in the DC universe, but possibly in comics in general, is because since Superman is such an iconic superhero, nobody would expect that DC would actually kill their most famous hero. So that's why it was very shocking at the time. But because Superman's popularity is so high, like usual, DC couldn't let him stay dead forever. So you want to know what they did? They later on showed that in later issues that Superman actually never died. He was only in a coma. And the reason why they thought he was dead was because of his heart rate. It was basically so low that it was basically undetectable. So basically he fell into a coma and his heart rate was so low that it was undetectable. So yeah, Superman was technically alive the whole time. But it still counts as a death. So no matter what you think, it still counts. Okay? That's basically DC deaths in a nutshell. It's a very interesting topic to say the least because yeah, it's a very unique topic to say the least because it's like DC probably had it best when it came to comic book deaths. Now, don't get me wrong, Marvel also was great at it, but it seemed like DC always had they've always had it like more shocking, you know. So it's it's crazy. And now for the final topic that I want to get on about DC. The only reason how come I'm making this a final topic is because I don't necessarily have so much time left. So, I do have a lot of things that I have to finish. But I will still finish it. But I'll still finish this live stream for you guys. So, I want to take this opportunity to talk about the DC movies. There are plenty of DC movies. Not just the DC Extended Universe, aka the DCEU, which, by the way, made over $2 billion off of 3 movies. Yeah, 3. DC had also made previous movies. Some of them did great, and some of them didn't. Okay? First of all, on Batman's side, there was a serial from the 1940s, specifically 1943. Yeah, there was a Batman serial that aired in the 1940s in theaters, and they were serials. It was like I believe it was like either a 12 or 15 chapter run, and you can easily find them on YouTube. Just search up Batman serial 1943, some shit like that. I guarantee you will find that serial. And it's actual footage. Like, it's not like crappy footage. No, it's actually like legitimate. So you can easily search it up on YouTube. And also, Batman also had an iconic 1960s TV series starring Adam West. And also a movie, too, that came out in 1966. I honestly thought that Batman was actually quite fun, more than the 40s Batman, to be honest. The 40s Batman kind of felt a little boring. But I thought the 60s Batman was actually more exciting, to be honest. Because it actually had punchlines, you know? More on that. But, yeah. And then Batman also got a movie adaptation from the 1980s. starring Michael Keaton as Batman and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Oh, speaking of the Joker, he was also played by Cesar Romero in the 1960s. Just FYI. Jack Nicholson as the Joker was amazing. Like, I can't even tell you how amazing Jack Nicholson was. Like, Jack Nicholson was probably the best comic representation of the Joker. Like, probably even more than Heath Ledger. Like, I love Heath Ledger as much as any DC fan, but the biggest difference is that the Jack Nicholson's Joker had more of like a comic, more relief side to him, while Heath Ledger's Joker is more of like a dark and twisted version of the character. You know, and even though that's exactly how the Joker is, you know, he's very dark and twisted. We all know that. He's not. He's also like very. Just let Jack Nicholson's Joker answer the question for you, okay? I'm just gonna let him do the talking, okay? The point I'm trying to get across is that Jack Nicholson's Joker, in my opinion, was probably the best representation of the Joker. In the animated side, you also had Mark Hamill as the Joker, which a lot of people also loved as well. If you're not familiar with who Mark Hamill is, you guys may know him as Luke Skywalker from Star Wars. Yeah, he actually voiced the Joker in the anime series. So anyways, back to what I was saying about the movies. Yeah, in the 1980s, he was played by, in the 1989 Batman movie, the character was played by Michael Keaton. Yeah, he's played by Michael Keaton. And there were also, Batman also had movie adaptations from the 90s. From the 90s as well. Hang on, I'm so sorry. Yeah. He also had some movies from the 90s, which were not necessarily regarded as some of Batman's best. I mean, some of them did good, actually. I mean, I'll be honest. It actually kind of did. But I'm trying to remember exactly how it went, you know. Anyways. Oh, and speaking of, also, by the way, in the animated series, Batman is voiced by Kevin Conroy. So, I just wanted to throw that out in case anyone cares. So, back to the 89 Batman movie. Again, Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson were the Jokers and stuff like that. And FYI, the movie was also directed by Tim Burton. If you guys are not too familiar with who Tim Burton is, you guys may know him for directing dark and gothic, eccentric, and quirky fantasy movies such as Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Ed Wood, Sleepy Hollow, and some other later movies such as Corpse Bride, Sweeney Todd, Dark Shadows, and Frankenweenie. Some of his best-known adventure comedy movies are Pee-wee's Big Adventure, superhero films such as Batman and Batman Returns, and also the sci-fi 2001 version of The Planet of the Apes, as well as Big Fish from 2003, and also The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from 2005, which was a remake of the 70s movie, and also the 2010 Alice in Wonderland movie, all of which altogether, which also, by the way, garnered, I'm talking about Alice in Wonderland, actually, which grossed over $1 billion in the box office. So I just want to throw out in case anyone cares. So, yeah, because Tim Burton is such a very talented director, it's probably no secret why his version of Batman was really great, because it was not only, the 1989 Batman movie was not only the top grossing film of that year, but it was the 5th highest grossing film in history at the time. So yeah, that movie was a huge deal. But it also spawned a successful sequel the very next year, which came out in 1992, which again, it had Michael Keaton as Batman, so he reprised his role, and again, it came out in 1992. So basically, critics praised that movie for its action sequences, the acting. Also, Danny Elfman composed the music for it, and also the effects and the film's villains. Although it was criticized for its overwhelmingly dark and depressing tone. So yeah, it actually had it starred the Penguin, who was one of Batman's best villains, played by Danny DeVito, and also Catwoman, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, I believe. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So yeah, it's nice that they feature Penguin and Catwoman in this one, because I thought that was actually a pretty I thought that was a pretty awesome idea, actually, to put two of so much well-known Batman characters in the movie. But back to what I was saying, this was also directed by Tim Burton, and it's a successful sequel. It's actually really good. I don't consider it better than the first Batman movie, but it was still a good sequel. Batman Forever and Batman Robin, oh gosh, those movies. I mean, Batman Forever was mediocre at best. Definitely mediocre. Because, I mean, it came out in 1995. It was very successful in the box office, but it was mostly mixed reviews. Meaning some people like it and some people hated it, you know. Basically, the reason why Batman Forever has a much more lighter tone was because Warner Brothers believed that Batman Returns actually failed to outgross its predecessor because of the parents' complaints about the film's violence and the dark overtones. So that's exactly why Warner Brothers decided to make the Batman series more family friendly. This time, it doesn't have Michael Keaton as Batman. Instead, it has Val Kilmer, who a lot of people actually don't like. And also, it had Chris O'Donnell as Robin as well. Yep, I'm not joking. If you're not too familiar with who Chris O'Donnell is, you guys might know him nowadays as being Special Agent Jay Cowan from NCIS Los Angeles. And also Peter Garrett from Vertical Limit as well. But he's mostly known for playing Dick Grayson. Unfortunately for him, despite Chris O'Donnell being a talented actor, he just didn't really click as Robin. Oh, especially in the second movie, the sequel to Batman Forever. Oh my god. Don't even fucking get me started. Batman and Robin. Oh my god. It is one of, by far, the worst. Is by far one of the worst superhero movies ever made, and one of the worst DC movies ever made. It was actually successful in the box office, believe it or not. It didn't outsell its predecessor, but it was still very successful. It had a budget of $125 million, and it grossed $238.2 million in the box office. So even though it was successful in the box office, it wasn't successful as far as reviews. Okay, Val Kilmer was not necessarily a great Batman, but he was not terrible. George Clooney, on the other hand, holy shit, he was terrible. He was fucking terrible as Batman. In fact, George Clooney believed that he actually knew he played the character so bad. He knew that he played the character so bad that even George Clooney himself actually apologized for destroying Batman. Also, accordingly, Robin's unfunny puns made the movie basically unwatchable. Like, he had so much puns, and it just made it even worse. Like, oh my god. Jesus Christ. And okay, so let me go through the casting real quick. So, it also has Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, yes. Of course, George Clooney was Batman. Of course, Chris O'Donnell was Dick Grayson or Robin. But you also had Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, aka Barbara Wilson. Yeah, Barbara fucking Wilson. That's another thing. Why did they change Barbara's name? Her name is Barbara Gordon, not Wilson. I don't fucking get it. I'm not exactly sure if there was a time when Barbara's real last name was Wilson. I don't know. If that's the case, just tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. I don't know. The point I'm trying to get across is her name is Barbara Gordon, not Barbara Wilson. It's Barbara Gordon. Jesus Christ, do I have to emphasize on that? Anyways, you also had Uma Thurman as Dr. Pamela Isley, aka Poison Ivy. And you also had Michael Gold as Alfred Pennyworth. aka the trusted butler of both Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson. Here's the problem. In the movie, Alfred is actually dying of a rare disease from which Mr. Freeze's wife also suffers, and at the end of the movie, he later gets cured. Yeah, not making that up. Also, Bane was in the movie, and he was played by Robert Jeep Swenson. Yeah, Jeep Swenson. If you guys don't know who Jeep Swenson is, he was a professional wrestler who wrestled in WCCW and WCW as well. And he called himself the Final Solution, which basically offended a lot of Jewish organizations, by the way. So yeah, he caused, a lot of controversy from his, name. Yep, Jeep Swenson was Bane. Unbelievable. That was another thing that really shocked me. Oh, speaking of WWE appearances, the movie also starred Jesse Ventura as an Arkham Asylum guard. So yeah, there were two. Even though Jeep Swenson never wrestled for WWE anyways, I mean, it still is a wrestler, so it's like, Speaking of Jeep Swenson, he also passed away in 1997 at the age of 40 from a heart failure, just FYI. But yeah, Jesse Ventura, who you guys might know as a commentator for WWE, especially in the 80s, he was known as Jesse the Body Ventura. He was a guard in the movie. How unfortunate is it that some of the hottest Hollywood talent at the time, at least, got casted in this movie? It sounded like that this movie should have been successful, but it wasn't. It was because of the horrible writing, the acting, and all that kind of shit, and all the unfunny jokes in it too. I think it was mainly the movie's writing that doomed the movie from the start. As a matter of fact, even the director himself, Joel Schumacher, actually said that he wanted 100% of the blame and that he is the main reason the movie failed and that the only person to blame is himself. Joel Schumacher even said himself that he should never have said yes to this project. Yep. Joel Schumacher actually said that he should never have said yes to... that he should never agreed to, making Batman and Robin. That's how bad he thought this film was. How fucked up is that? I know. And so because of the failure of these movies, DC, or shall I say Warner Brothers in this case, actually, they later rebooted the film series. Yeah, they later rebooted the Batman film series by having Batman Begins, aka the Dark Knight Trilogy, which was directed by Christopher Nolan, a very talented director of our time currently, actually. Sorry. And yeah, he's also one of the highest grossing directors in history, as he directed movies such as first of all, he had a big budget film hit, which was and he gained acclaim from this thriller film called Insomnia and a mystery drama film known as The Prestige. But he found more success when he directed the Dark Knight Trilogy, Inception, and also Interstellar as well. He's also currently directing a movie called what is it called? It's a World War II movie. Dunkirk, that's what it is. Yeah. He's also making Dunkirk, which will be interesting because it's something that he's never done before. So it should be very interesting. So yeah, and also I like his style of storytelling because, he actually has a unique way. So anyways, 2005 was basically... Oh, and I almost forgot. Wait a second. I almost forgot. There was also a planned fourth sequel, believe it or not, during the original Batman run. There was actually going to be a movie that would come out right after Batman and Robin. And basically... I'm sorry if I'm actually... Forgive me if I'm stumbling a lot. It's just that, I'm doing a lot of thinking. I'm trying to recollect. Anyways, this movie would have the same cast, but because of but because of Batman and Robin's failure, because of Batman and Robin's failure, Warner Brothers canceled their fourth sequel. It was going to be called Batman Unchained, but they canceled that because of, the performance of Batman and Robin, which ended the initial series of Batman, and then they later rebooted the Batman character with Batman Begins in 2005, which starred Christian Bale as Batman, which a lot of people say Christian Bale is hands down the best Batman. And I actually kind of agree with that, actually. Like, I actually agree with that. Speaking of Batman Begins, it's also considered one of the best superhero films of the 2000s. It's not hard to see why, because yes, I have seen the Dark Knight trilogy, and they were wonderful. It all started with this movie, Batman Begins. It then was later followed up by arguably the most famous one of the series, called The Dark Knight, which is the second movie. And this is the most famous Batman movie so far. And it had Heath Ledger as, obviously, the Joker. Christian Bale returned as Batman. And it also grossed $1 billion in the box office, making it one of the most successful comic book movies ever made. Probably the most successful comic book movie ever made. And that's a huge statement, too. But yeah, I fucking love Dark Knight. I just really do. Heath Ledger was an amazing Joker. Christian Bale was an amazing Batman. Everybody just did a fantastic job. It's very unfortunate to what happened to Heath Ledger. He unfortunately passed away on January 22nd, 2008, which was basically the film came out in July of 2008, and Heath Ledger died. So yeah, he died basically about 6 months before the film came out, so he never got to see himself on the big screen, which is unfortunate. He basically died from a huge intoxication of a toxic combination of prescription drugs. So that sucks. Rest in peace, by the way, dude. It also set the record as the highest grossing opening weekend of all time in the U.S., earning approximately $158 million and becoming the fastest film to reach the $400 million mark in the history of American cinema on its 18th day of its release. It was then later followed up by The Dark Knight Rises, which, by the way, grossed again $1 billion in the box office. $1.085 to be exact. Just throwing it out there. Once again, this is the final one of the trilogy, and it stars Tom Hardy as Bane. Yep, you heard me. Tom Hardy is Bane. If you guys think I'm making that up, look it up for yourselves. Also, Anne Hathaway is also Catwoman as well. This is another great movie, though unfortunately, The Dark Knight Rises is also known for an incident that happened in Aurora, Colorado. What happened was that on July 20th of 2012, during the midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises, at the Century, I believe it was 16 Cinema in Aurora, Colorado, a gunman with a gas mask opened fire in the theater, killing 12 people and injuring 58 others. Police then responded to the shooting and apprehended the suspect, who was later identified as a 24-year-old guy by the name of James Egan Holmes. Basically, Holmes identified himself as the Joker, so he was basically trying to be like him. Little did he know, that shit got him in trouble. Anyways, let's not talk about that dark stuff, that real-life dark stuff. So anyways, let's just keep moving on. So yeah, the Dark Knight trilogy is just one of the best things that happened to DC. On Superman's side, Superman had countless movies like Batman. And like Batman, he was played by numerous actors. In the DCEU, currently, Batman is played by Ben Affleck, who I heard is actually trying to get out of that role, apparently, because of his, alcoholic issues. Man, I fucking hate that shit. Anyways, Superman also had countless movies. He was played by the likes of Kirk Allen, George Reeves, Christopher Reeve, Dean Cain, Tom Welling, Brandon Roy, Henry Cavill, and Tyler Hoechlin. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. So, anyways, yeah, basically, he has been in countless movies that you could think of. It's crazy to think that too. Believe it or not, though, there was also a radio show called The Adventures of Superman, which aired in the 40s, which had Bud Collyer as Superman, and it ran through from 1940 to 1951. Bud was also casted as the voice of Superman in the animated Superman series made by Paramount and Fleischer Studios and Famous Studios for theatrical release in 1941 and 1943, which FYI was during the phases of World War II. So yeah, originally Paramount owned the rights to Superman at one point. Not making that up. But also, speaking of that, much like Batman, Superman himself also had a serial that came out in the 1940s. It was a 15-part black and white serial, 15 chapters, by the way, that came out in 1948 by Columbia Pictures. And at the time, Columbia actually owned the rights to both Batman and Superman. Imagine if there was a Batman v Superman back then. I bet that movie would be better than the one from 2016. But anyways, Kirk Allen is Superman in this one, just FYI. But though he is actually uncredited. Superman's first feature film, if you're actually talking about like feature films, it was an independently made film from the 50s who was played by George Reeves as Superman, an actor who, by the way, unfortunately committed suicide at the age of 45. Yeah, I know, enough of that dark stuff. He basically portrayed Superman. He basically portrays Superman in this. Oh, and by the way, never mind. It's irrelevant anyways. It also had Phyllis Coates as Lois Lane, too. Who, by the way, is actually still currently alive, and she's currently aged 90. Yep. And the film was actually released by Lippert Pictures, Inc., and this was during the time when they temporarily had the rights to Superman. It's pretty interesting information we actually get to learn about the film history for Superman, actually. Because, like, before now, I never actually knew none of this, I'll be honest. It's actually pretty cool information to listen to learn about, actually. There was also a Broadway musical called It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman, which actually came out in 1966. That's exactly how, and eventually that actually became very, very popular among fans. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Yeah, that's how that became popular. It came from a Broadway musical that was also remade for television in 1975. Then in 1978, this was the most successful Superman feature film, especially at the time. It starred Christopher Reeve as Superman, and needless to say, he was a great Superman. Like, really, really great. I can't even tell you. And then he also had numerous sequels, all of which basically practically failed. But then in 2006, Bryan Singer, who is known for directing the X-Men movies in the Marvel Universe, in the DC Universe, he had Brandon Roth, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not exactly sure. He basically portrays Superman in Superman Returns. This is a movie that actually could have had a lot of potential, but unfortunately it failed despite it being yeah, it was also somewhat successful in the box office as well, too. Though when Superman Returns first came out, critics praised it for its visual effects, the story, the musical score, and the style as well. Though in later years it started to get mixed reviews because of its length, its story, and lack of action scenes. Bryan Singer himself actually did say that he's still very proud of the movie, Though if he were able to go back in time, he would definitely done some, things for it, Uh, basically, yeah, basically, uh, there were a lot of romance scenes in this movie, and there was not enough action, so that's why a lot of people complained about that. Some people also didn't like the casting choice, but from what I see, people haven't been complaining about it. But from what I hear, some people don't like Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor, or what's her name? Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane. Oh yeah, so yeah. Also, James Marsden, who is known as Scott Summers, aka Cyclops in the X-Men film series, also starred in this movie as well. He was Richard White, the the nephew of Perry White, also the fiance of Lois Lane. Yep. It's as if they always have to cast James to always fight over someone for the love of a woman. They technically did that in the X-Men with Wolverine and Cyclops, so they kind of did it in DC. It's just a coincidence, I know. Then later on, Superman then got rebooted into what is now known as the DCEU, in which he is played by Henry Cavill. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. He's not the worst Superman. He possibly could be the worst Superman I've ever seen, because he's a dick. Like, why is Superman such a dark superhero? Why is he so dark and such an asshole? Like, I don't get it. I don't know. It's just something that... This is something that really confuses me, because it's like, why is Superman portrayed as a dick? Like, I never got that. You can watch Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and you can see how much of a sociopath Superman is. And to make matters worse, he almost killed some people in the DCU as well, which is against the moral code. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot. We already talked about how, some other studios during the early days of DC films originally owned the rights to DC. Some of the DC characters, like Superman or Batman. I do believe it was in the 70s when Warner Brothers bought DC Comics, and so therefore Warner Brothers, as of today, Warner Brothers currently owns the rights to all DC merchandise. That includes everything in the DC Comics. Literally everything. And it's been like that since the 70s, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah. And currently, yeah, of course, they distribute films in the DCEU because Warner Brothers owns DC. Currently, there are 3 movies that are out: Man of Steel and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, both of which are directed by Zack Snyder, and Suicide Squad, which was directed by David Ayer. Now, the reason why both of these movies were failures was because, Man of Steel was also a failure too, believe it or not. It was very successful, really successful in the box office, but it still got mixed reviews because, they actually did enjoy the film's visuals, the action sequences, and also Hans Zimmer's musical score, but they criticized it for its pacing and its lack of character development, which is a problem that the DCEU has right now. They are having a hard time, developing characters, which is a problem that they need to fix, especially in the case of of the Justice League. I'm sorry. Back to the point at hand. Batman v Superman got criticized because of his length, and also the fact that they even said that the story and the editing in this movie was a complete mess. Though some people actually did praise this movie for the visual style and the acting performances. So So I guess DC did do some good casting choices, I suppose. Though people didn't like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. And to be honest, I didn't either. I don't like Henry as Superman either. I mean, like, I'm not saying Henry is nothing, and I mean, like, he still has the potential to be a great Superman. I just don't like how DC, or Warner Brothers for that matter, is actually. I just don't like how Warner Brothers is writing the character. So far, I felt like the characters who were actually, I felt like the actors who performed really well in this movie was Ben Affleck as Batman, Amy Adams as Lois Lane, um, Lawrence Fishburne as what's his name? Damn, I always keep forgetting. I'm sorry. Uh, shit, what was it? I'm so sorry. Lawrence Fishburne also did a great job in the movie, so that's. Oh yeah, that's right. His name is Perry White. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne was good too. Uh, Also Gal Gadot, she fucking killed it as Wonder Woman. Like, holy shit. That was one of the best representation and best on-screen representations of Wonder Woman I have ever fucking seen in my life. You also have Jeremy Irons who is known as Scar in The Lion King, as Alfred, who also did great. Holly Hunter as well, and that's about it. I thought those guys really did put on a great performance for this movie. Point blank period. Though people didn't like the tone, the writing, or the pacing. Yeah, the pacing was awful, and the screenplay, the writing was terrible, and the tone was just way too dark. Like, don't get me wrong, I like dark tones, but I think comic book movies should at least have some humor in it, you know? Maybe some dark humor, I guess, I don't know. Judging by how Justice League is when I saw the trailer, it seems like this movie is actually going to have more humor, more than dark stories as well. Especially since you have someone like The Flash, who is known for some humorous stuff. I know Barry Allen is going to bring a lot of humorous elements into the DCEU. Especially that one line in the trailer where Barry asks Bruce, wait, what kind of superpowers do you have again? And then Bruce responds, he says, I'm rich. Right there is some good humor right there to get a good laugh out of people. Like I said, I love dark tones, but I think it's time for a change, you know? Batman v Superman, overall, it was just a disappointment, really. Like, I just didn't like, especially the way Superman was portrayed. The way Superman is portrayed in the DCEU is fucking terrible. Like, he is portrayed as a sociopath, a very, very unlikable character. It's like, how are we supposed to like Superman if he's a dick? I mean, and not only that, but Batman practically killed people in this movie too, which I guess was a callback to his golden age years. What's really coincidental is that when I said that earlier in this live stream, that rather this podcast, I already stated that Batman and Superman used to kill people during the golden age. It's no secret, you know. I just really can't say it right there. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Thank you, Andrew, for actually reminding me about that. There's also a movie called Watchmen out there, which is another DC movie that came out in 2010, which is also regarded as which is regarded as one of the best DC movies ever made, which I have not seen, unfortunately. But let's continue. So yeah, Batman v Superman was very, very, very successful in the box office. It grossed nearly $1 billion. It grossed nearly $900 million off of a budget of $250 million. Crazy, isn't it? You know, despite this movie not having the best reviews, it sure as hell was very successful. Now to the next movie, Suicide Squad. This movie, the trailers for this movie made it seem like that it was going to be the best comic book movie ever made. Then when the movie came out, people hated it. Like, it was another very successful movie in the box office. It consisted of Will Smith, Jared Leto, Margot Robbie, Joel Kinnaman, Viola Davis, Jay Courtney, Jay Hernandez, blah, blah. Also, Cara Delevingne, who, should I state off of the record, is primarily a model. I mean, she's an actress too, but she's primarily a model, just FYI. Oh, I honestly thought she was older. Apparently she's 24 years old. I honestly thought she was a bit older, to be honest, but that's not the point. Anyways, yeah, she's basically Enchantress. Margot Robbie, on the other hand, she's Harley Quinn. Will Smith is Deathshot, which is a bit odd considering the fact that Deathshot is not even black in the comics. He's actually white, but okay. Jared Leto is the Joker, but here's the problem. I mean, Jared Leto's a great actor and all, but why the fuck is the Joker portrayed as a sex object in this movie? It's like, what the hell? It's like, what the hell? Why is the Joker portrayed as a sex object? He's supposed to be a psychologically demented supervillain who would do a lot of crazy shit. We're talking about the person who murdered Jason Todd and paralyzed Barbara Gordon. Yeah, I'm not... that's another thing. I think I actually forgot to mention this earlier, which is that in The Killing Joke, which is regarded as one of DC's best comic book storylines ever made, the Joker did the unthinkable when he confronted Barbara Gordon, had a gun, and shot her in her lower abdomen, which went through her spine too, and she was paralyzed. At that point, her career was over. Her career as Batgirl was over, and this is how she became the Oracle. Even worse, the Joker stripped her naked and took naked pictures of her and sent it to her father. That is fucking sick. Yeah, we're talking about that guy. You know, one of the most dastardly villains, probably the most crazy villain in all of comics. Like, we're talking about the most craziest supervillain in comic book history. And for some fucked up reason, he's a sex object. What the hell? You know, I'm not even going to get into it. Just fuck it. Anyways, Margot Robbie is Harleen Quinzel, aka Harley Quinn. And Margot really killed it as this character. She really did an amazing job. You also had Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flagg, who actually leads the Suicide Squad. Oh, and by the way, Tom Hardy was originally supposed to be Rick Flagg. However, he had to drop out of the movie because of scheduling conflicts. And also Jay Courtney is George Harkness, aka Captain Boomerang. Jay Hernandez is El Diablo. El Dewali, I don't know how you pronounce his name, is Waylon Jones, aka Killer Croc. And finally, Cara Delevingne is also Enchantress. And Karen Fukuhara, I believe her name is, also plays Katana, who mourns over the death. She's basically a superhero who's an expert martial artist and a swordswoman who mourns her husband's death. She holds a mystical sword that's capable of trapping the souls of its victims. And she's actually a volunteer, not a criminal. So it doesn't make any sense that a superhero like Katana is helping the Suicide Squad. I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyways, also, as for Enchantress, her motive in the movie was not made very, very clear. So it's like she was basically thrown into the movie for practically nothing. I don't know why, but that was what the case was, though. Like, I don't know. And not only that, but the writing in this movie was crap, and the editing was awful too, apparently. So yeah, they also need to hire a new editor as well, because yeah, the directing, the characters, and this plot as well, they barely even developed on these characters. Though, like I said, Harley Quinn and Joker were both actually praised in here. Margot Robbie and Jared Leto were both actually received praise for their performances as their respective characters. However, that's not the point. The point is that the movie sucked so bad. I mean, when I first saw it, I actually thought it was okay, but over the time, I actually began to notice everything that's wrong with it. You know, and this is a problem that the DCEU is having. It's barely developing on its characters. Its editing is awful, and it's not having good writing. Apparently, David Ayer, who, like I said, is the director of this movie, actually only has 6 weeks to write a script. Why 6 fucking weeks? That's not even... Sorry. That's not even enough time to create a great story. So how the fuck can you make a great... I think I just now found out exactly why this movie failed. It's because David was never given enough time to write a proper story for the movie. I guarantee you that if David Ayer had more time to write for this movie, it would have been so much better. I mean, like, yeah, the casting choices are a bit weird. Like, for example, Will Smith as Deathshot. But it still would have been completely worth it if the story was sensical. But it didn't. Currently, the upcoming movie in the DCEU is Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, Shazam, Cyborg, and Green Lantern. It's unknown exactly when The Flash will happen, because apparently they're actually holding off on that project, actually. He will be played by Ezra Miller, who will be playing Barry Allen in Justice League. So yeah, you might be wondering exactly what Flash will be playing. Well, because Barry Allen is the most popular Flash in the DC universe and is loved by many fans, that's why Barry Allen is practically everywhere, and he's always given the main role. Though, it would be cool to see Jay Garrick, Wally West, and Bart Allen make some appearances in the DCEU, but so far we have Barry. And I have no problem with Barry. I love Barry, but hopefully we still get more appearances from the other Flashes. And he's just FYI, Barry Allen is actually the second guy to take the mantle of the Flash. Jay Garrick was the first. Just FYI. Anyways, Wonder Woman is probably a DC movie I have never been excited for in my life. I have not been so excited for a movie in my life. Like, I think I've already stated that Wonder Woman is my favorite DC superhero alongside Batman. And let me explain why. Wonder Woman she defines everything it means to be a female superhero. Very strong and independent, one of the most powerful superheroes in the DC universe. Do I also need to make any references or any references that she is hot as hell, even with that armor? I mean, it's mostly because she's actually played by an Israel model, but still, unlike Cara Delevingne, Gal Gadot has something that she doesn't have. Gal has the ability to both act and model. She's basically the full package here. And it's very crazy too. It's like, also, believe it or not, speaking of Gal Gadot, did you know that she's also known for her role as Giselle in the Fast and the Furious films? But did you know that originally she was actually supposed to be the main female antagonist in Man of Steel? I forgot what her name was, but originally Warner Brothers was actually going to cast Gal, but the reason how come she turned down that role was because she was pregnant at the time. Thank God she turned down that role, because if she never did, we would never have gotten her as Wonder Woman, because at this point, I think she plays the best representation of Wonder Woman so far. The film is also going to have Chris Pine in it, who also starred in many successful films as well. So yeah, he's another successful... You guys already know him as James Kirk from the Star Trek films. So yeah, everybody knows him from Star Trek. So considering the fact that Chris Pine starred in so many big-name Hollywood movies, I have no doubt in my mind that he most likely did a great job as Steve Trevor. If you guys don't know who Steve Trevor is, he's basically a captain from the United States Army Air Service, and he's the love interest of Diana Prince. So similar to Superman, they both have their own love interests. As Superman, Superman's love interest is Lois Lane, while Wonder Woman's love interest is Steve Trevor. On the other hand, you also have Connie Nielsen. Yep, you've heard me correctly. Connie fucking Nielsen will be Queen Hippolyta. If you guys don't know who Queen Hippolyta is, she's the mother of Diana Prince. Diana Prince is also known as Wonder Woman, for those who don't know. I'm just saying this because I know a lot of people's probably not going to know. Speaking of that, alongside Gal Gadot, alongside Gal, Connie was originally also supposed to have a role in Man of Steel. She was supposed to be Superman's mother, Laura Lorvan. She was actually previously considered for that role. Also, Nicole Kidman was also in negotiations for the role of Queen Hippolyta, but she dropped out due to scheduling issues with her movie Big Little Lies. in a similar way how Tom Hardy had to drop out of Suicide Squad because of conflict, because of scheduling conflicting. I think this was because at the time when Tom Hardy turned this down was because he was filming The Revenant, I believe. I can't remember, but I believe it was because of his association with The Revenant. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, you also have Robin Wright as the sister of Queen Hippolyta and Diana's aunt, General Antelope. I think that's how you pronounce it. And you also have David Thewlis as Ares, the treacherous god of war. Yep, that's right. Ares, one of Wonder Woman's the major adversary to Wonder Woman, will be in the movie. He is the Greek god of war, and he's the major adversary to Wonder Woman. And also, did you guys know that currently in the comics, Wonder Woman is the god of war now? It's safe to say that she actually defeated Ares. She actually defeated Ares, and she became the god of war, basically enhancing her powers. She just gets better every time. I'm just saying. Anyways, so yeah, this is a very, very unique casting choice because like most of it is mostly female because this makes sense because since the land that Wonder Woman lives in is basically an all-female land, the Amazons, it would only make sense if it was a primarily female casting. It also is going to be directed by a woman by the name of Patty Jenkins. If you guys don't know who she is, she's most known for directing a movie in 2003 called Monster, which received a lot of reward. Off the budget of $8 million, it received $60.4 million in the box office, being very successful. And the movie received critical acclaim, and it won 17 awards for what's her name? Charlize Theron's portrayal of Alide Wuornos. If you guys don't know who this woman is, she's basically a serial killer and a former prostitute who was executed in Florida in 2002 for killing 6 men, although she was not tried for a 7th murder, however. And this all actually happened in the late 80s and the early 90s. And most people love how Charlize played the character. They loved her portrayal, and including it also won Academy Awards for like Academy Award for Best Actress, Golden Globe Award for Best Actress, and the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Lead Actress. So, considering how successful this movie is, as like I said, it's based off of a real life serial killer who, got a death penalty. It's safe to say that I think Wonder Woman will be very successful. The only problem is that the Snyders, aka Zack and Deborah Snyder, are producers of this movie, but they're not the only producers of this movie. So, by the looks of things, it looks like Charles Roven will be the primary writer. All I know is, and also Charles Roven, he not only produced Suicide Squad, all the DCEU movies, but he also produced the Dark Knight trilogy. So I hope to see that Wonder Woman will be very successful. As for Justice League will be amazing. I guarantee it. Because Justice League actually has potential to actually develop all the characters slightly. Like, we could actually at least get some character development from these characters, and we could possibly get more character development in their solo films later by going in depth. I mean, character development can happen in one movie, and what's even best is that some of the characters from the previous films will be in it. For example, Queen Hippolyta will be in Justice League. Also, I almost forgot, DC casting Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman, was probably one of the best decisions ever made because, in my opinion, Jason Momoa is a great casting choice. If you guys don't know who he is, you guys may very well most notably know him for being Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones. Well, at least he was for like a year at least. He's also known for being Ronan Dex in a military science fiction television series called Stargate Atlantis. And I love Jason Momoa's casting as Aquaman. And also, speaking of which, Aquaman fucking stole the show in the trailer. Like, he was honestly the best damn thing about that trailer. He's honestly the character I'm looking forward to the most. Also, do I also need to say that Mera will be in the movie as well? And Mara looks, she looks absolutely stunning in this movie. So I'm looking forward to seeing her too. The movie's antagonist is Steppenwolf and his army of parademons, and basically, what happens is that Batman and Wonder Woman have to assemble a team of superheroes to face this catastrophic threat. So it consists of the Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg. Now, Superman is pretty much already confirmed that Superman will be in the movie, though currently DC is actually keeping him out of all the teaser trailers and stuff like that because they want to keep Superman's role in this movie very secretive. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what Superman's role in this movie will be. Now, like I said, the trailer absolutely shocked me. Like, I think this movie will be great. You have Bruce Wayne, Diana Prince, Barry Allen, Arthur Curry, and Victor Stone. I'll translate for you. Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg. Cyborg is actually a character that I'm a little bit concerned about, considering the fact that he's all CG and stuff like that. But let's just say that he should be good. He should be great, actually. I hope he'll actually say something like "Booyah" because it's a famous catchphrase of his, and it would excite Teen Titans fans. Also, I do hope that the DCEU will consider making a live-action Teen Titans film because the Teen Titans really do deserve a live-action movie. Now, they basically faced a catastrophic threat of Steppenwolf and his parademons as they hunt for the 3 mother boxes on Earth. And it takes place months after the events of Batman v Superman. Which, of course, this happened after Superman's sacrifice for humanity. So that's really all there is I had to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this latest edition of the Shizzle Network podcast. Sorry if it's not like, what you guys expected, but at least I gave it a really good length, for an hour and 30 minutes. So that's really all I have to say. If you guys did enjoy this podcast, also tell me what you guys think of the DC movies in the comments below. Do you guys think Wonder Woman and Justice League will be very successful? Because if you guys do think so, just let me know. So because, yeah. Anyways, if you guys did enjoy it, be sure to subscribe for more videos from the Shizzle Network. And until then, peace out and deuces beyond the infinite.